Hello and welcome back everybody. Today we're going to talk about My Hero Academia chapter 221. Now last week we got teased with the doctor, as everybody know. In this chapter we found out exactly who that doctor is, and as a lot of people have been speculating and theorizing for a very long time, this is in fact the same doctor that Deku met as a kid. Now in the past we've seen a silhouette of the doctor before, but we didn't really see enough details to really tell, is this exactly the same person? I mean, we had a lot of clues, like in the anime we had the same voice actor. I think there was some trivia part about this doctor that kind of tied in with it as well, but overall we didn't have anything concrete to really say that this is indeed the same person. But this chapter we found out through visual that this is the same person because he has the exact same goggles. Now that is definitely something I would personally at least consider to be a concrete evidence or concrete proof that this is the same character. I mean, with the doctor we didn't really know the name, but even if we did, he did mention that he picked Arima Ujiko on the spot, meaning it's not actually his real name, so he's using an alias like many other villains are, like Twice, Dabi, Mr. Compress, and a lot of people. I feel like the only person in the league right now, or at least the only one except Shigaraki at least, is Toga, because I feel like Toga is a real name. It might not be, but I feel like it is. I don't see a reason why someone like Toga would really feel like she'd need an alias, you know what I mean? Like, it feels like she's not really afraid to get her identity out there. So Ujiko is an alias, but I don't think this should be something that's really considered a massive hype, because at the end of the day a lot of people thought this was gonna happen, me included. I had no reason to believe that this was not going to be the case. I mean, I don't really feel like him being the same doctor is going to affect much at all. It's certainly not gonna be anything huge for Deku, I don't think. Well, at least not based on the past that Deku and the doctor had, because in the past Deku had no quirks, so the doctor obviously just told him he has no potential, you should just give up, and there's just nothing that really binds them together after that, because why would the doctor be interested in a guy without a quirk? And a lot of people are saying that the doctor kind of like targeted Deku as a kid, but why would they do that to someone who had no connection to All Might or One for All at the time? And it pretty much made no sense to me, so I'm just gonna be that guy and say that I don't think anything crazy is gonna happen between Deku and the doctor, at least based on their past, apart from maybe the fact that Deku may or may not recognize this doctor if they meet in the future. Like, he's probably gonna be able to recognize him because he's seen him before, but that's gonna be it. He's gonna be a bit shocked that this guy's actually a villain, but there's really not gonna be anything else beyond that, I don't think. Now, going back to the whole thing with Gigantomachia, now what I found to be really interesting is the fact that Gigantomachia is very loyal to All for One, to the point where if the successor of All for One isn't sufficient enough in Gigantomachia's eyes, then he's gonna consider them to be useless and not worthy. He's really not gonna be keen on them at all. As we saw in this chapter, he was ready to throw down with Shigaraki, and based on what we saw, like, Dabi's attack had absolutely no effect on Gigantomachia whatsoever. His flames did absolutely nothing, and that just goes to show you exactly the difference in power between Gigantomachia and the rest of the League of Villains. The League of Villains as we know it, like this group that we have, Shigaraki's bunch, they are newbies, they are novices compared to some other people out there that used to work for All for One. Now, we don't know much about this doctor. Like, I don't think this doctor is really a powerhouse. He's more of a scientist, obviously. Like, he's manufacturing these gnomes that we've been seeing, like the high-end gnomes at the moment, and obviously he has some control over Gigantomachia through the voice of All for One mostly, and I think that is something that may play a part in the future, not necessarily towards Shigaraki, but towards someone else. He has to keep a leash on Gigantomachia, and this is a very interesting way for him to do it. He actually manipulates Gigantomachia through the voice of his former master. Now, if Shigaraki in the present is considered someone that Gigantomachia looks up to and listens to, then there is a possibility that there isn't gonna be a grand need for that technique anymore, but we don't really know if that's the case. Like, it's only been a month in the present date from when this chapter is taking place. This is just a month in the past, and I don't really think a huge change like that should really have happened in that short amount of time, but I guess we'll have to see, because I guess it really really depends exactly what changes they're going through. Another thing that I found really interesting about the Doctor is the fact that he wasn't really willing to reveal himself until he shows himself to them. Like, it wasn't okay for the League of Villains to actually walk up to the Doctor, because he, as we saw in the chapter, he was actually kind of reluctant to showing himself. He actually shouted at them to stay away because, well, I guess he has some kind of insecurity maybe about himself being shown without wanting it himself. Now, I'm not really sure if that's gonna be something that's quite important to his character, because he seems like quite a dominant character, and you know, it's not really someone you'd expect to have like insecurities and stuff when it comes to revealing their identity, but at the same time, maybe that's the whole thing. Like, maybe he is just someone that is a really dominant and really confident character behind the scenes, but he doesn't really like exposure too much, and that was simply a line that nearly got crossed, and he was so afraid that was gonna happen, so he just, you know, told them off right away. Because as he even mentioned, like, if they violate his rule, he will send them back to Gigantomachia and have him obliterate them. Now, that is what I call a bargaining chip. Like, he is definitely in control of the League right now as it is at this very moment. Like, they're gonna have to listen to what he has to say. If he tells them to move forward, they move forward, and if they don't, well, like, I guess he could technically have his way with them, because he has that one bargaining chip with Gigantomachia right now that if they don't follow his rules, he could just destroy them. And I really hope that leads somewhere. I really hope this leads to some kind of training arc, or, well, not necessarily a training arc, at least not a boring one. Like, the one we had with Class 1A and Class 1B, in my opinion, wasn't like the greatest, at least not on a week-to-week basis. So if there's gonna be some kind of training with the League, I either hope it's just bits and pieces, like a summary of what's gonna happen with their training, or it's gonna have to be a lot more fluid than the arc that we just had with 1A and 1B. Anyway, that's been this review for My Hero Academia chapter 221. Not really a very long review, but I just wanted to get my thoughts on the chapter, so I hope you liked it. And yeah, I'd love to know what you think down below in the comments about the chapter. You know, if you liked the whole reveal with the Doctor, did you think it was a Doctor all along, or is this some news to you? Maybe you've been living under a rock and you didn't even know about this theory. Just let me know down below, and as always, if you did, be sure to Detroit smash that like button if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. This has been Chaotic Plus, and I'll see you next time.